Mike Seidel joins us live from Shelby County, that's Memphis. And Mike, you had some freezing rain earlier, then some sleet, so it's kind of a whole mixed bag there. What's it doing right now?
It's still primarily sleet. Overnight last night, Jeff, it was all freezing rain, 2/3 of an inch of rain, but only about 1/10 of an inch accretion. And since about 2 o'clock when it moved in, it's been, I'd say, about 90% sleet, which is good for two reasons. One, it doesn't stick to the trees and power lines. That means less weight and fewer power outages. And number two, look at this. You got some traction, at least some traction. It's not like it's dry pavement, but it's better than freezing rain and a skating rink. So be very careful in the morning. It's going to be worse than it was this morning as far as all the roads covered with this sleet and slush. Watch those bridges and overpasses specifically. Let's bring in Nicole Lawrence, who's with the Tennessee DOT sector. Region 4 here in Western Tennessee covers 21 counties. And Nicole, thanks for joining us again. What can you update us with since mid-afternoon as far as what has occurred, and how has the sleet primarily impacted how you've kept these roads clean and open?
You know, this second round really has caused some extremely hazardous conditions on our roadways, and our crews are now there's things on the road that they could push off with the plow. So they're out plowing roads and applying new salt brine mixture to help with that refreeze. And hopefully we won't have as much, but there's still that potential there.
So is sleet more advantageous than just freezing rain to the plows and the salt brine trucks as far as getting the streets in better condition? Because I know with the sleet, we've seen some scraping and plowing in some of the parking lots.
Yeah, I mean, you know, any kind of frozen precipitation is going to be, you know, treacherous for our crews to work in. So they're doing the best they can to get out there and apply that brine mixture. And they've added some calcium chloride to make it a little bit of a hotter mixture to help with that thawing process.
And specifically the bridges and overpasses, they hit those quite a bit?
Yes, you know, that's the number one priority is the interstate, plus those true river bridges in Memphis and the flyovers and any kind of elevated surface. Those are going to be the areas that freeze first. So those are the areas that we concentrate on.
And one last question specifically, I'll put you on the spot. How have the bridges over the Mississippi done today, 55 and 40? Or especially this evening with all the sleet we've had?
I've seen some pictures of some covered areas, but, you know, our crews have done a great job to get out there and try to clear it as quickly and safely as possible.
Okay, Nicole Lawrence, we appreciate you sticking around. We had her on early this afternoon. Are you going to be spending the night there at the office, or are you going to get to go home tonight, Nicole?
I think I'll stay home tonight. I think yeah, I'm going to get home.
Okay, good to hear you. Good to hear you again. Thanks for the update. And from the Tennessee Highway Patrol, 25 accidents they responded to in Western Tennessee on the state highways since 5 a.m. this morning. That's more than we need to see, but as far as we've heard from the 25 accidents, there were no fatalities, unlike what we've seen out to our west. On the radar, you see the sleet, freezing rain coming in from the west-southwest. And again, about 3 more hours of this, and that will be it for precip until probably later tomorrow evening or tomorrow night. The question is, at that point, where will the temperature be and how much precip do we get? But we've got about another 24 hours to figure that out. So because of that uncertainty, the Weather Service here in Memphis extended the ice storm warning from noon tomorrow to 6 a.m. Thursday. Thursday, temperatures are well back above freezing. So we go back to Jeff Moore in the studio. Jeff, schools once again throwing in the towel tomorrow for a sleet day or an e-learning day, one or the other. You know, I kind of miss the snow and sleet days. Boy,
yeah, I don't think
COVID
the kids
and broadband put an end to that. What's that?
Yeah, I was going to say the kids don't mind whether it's a sleet day, a snow day, an ice day, as long as they don't have to go into school. That's probably the bottom line there, for most anyway.
Yeah, high-speed broadband kind of took care of that along with the COVID issue.
That's right. You don't get away from school. You just get to do it at home. All right. Thank you very much, Mike Seidel. That's where our own Mike Seidel is, and he's been dealing with a whole potpourri of precipitation, if you will, with ice this morning and then sleet. And Mike, at the top of the show, you mentioned that the saving grace maybe for a lot of driving is that it was sleet. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure, Jeff, because sleet does offer some traction, some friction under your tires. It's still not a walk in the park, but it beats a skating rink. And so we've got the sleet on the ground. In fact, we've had 4/10 of an inch liquid. That's what falls into the rain gauge and melts, and they report it from the Weather Service here in Memphis. And most of that was sleet. And we'll show you some shoveling later on, and you'll see how much sleet we've had. But mostly sleet, not freezing rain. The other advantage is on the trees, and that relates to the power outages. Right now we've got less than 500 power outages in Shelby County, but look at this pine tree. I checked it out. We've checked it out, my crew. We don't think the limb is not snapped. It's just got so much weight on it because look at this. Look at all these pines, the little pines. They can grab a lot of ice. So we've got accretion. It still looks to me like about 2/10. Maybe I could be talked into 1/4 of an inch. That's since last night about this time, because we had about 1/10 of an inch overnight. Most of what fell overnight did not freeze. It ran off because the temperature was very marginal, right around freezing. So this is all the way down to the ground, down to the driveway, the parking lot here at the bank. So imagine the weight. So if you throw on, as Carl mentioned, if you had 1/2 inch of ice, we'd have tree limbs cracking onto power lines. But right now we're at 1/4 inch or less. And as you can see on the radar, the precipitation is just about over with. Another hour or so of some maybe light sleet or freezing rain. And that really is going to be it until later tomorrow night. So what you see is what you get out on the roadways. It's basically the sleet, which looks like 1 inch or 2 of snow or slush. It's still icy, Jeff. So you still got to slow down, but all in all, the biggest advantage of sleet versus freezing rain is from the power perspective. The roads are still going to be a mess in the morning, and again, all schools have closed again for the 2nd day this week.
All right, thank you very much, Mike Seidel. Of course, we'll be back with Mike here throughout this upcoming hour. At that, let's bring in our own Mike Seidel. He's in Shelby County, Tennessee. That is the Memphis area. You're on the east side of Memphis, and you've had kind of a mixed bag as we headed through the day today, Mike. Maybe a little bit of a break overnight, but then another round perhaps coming in late tomorrow and tomorrow night.
Yeah, it looks like the timing is going to be late tomorrow night. The question is, what's our temperature and how much precip do we get? Now, if you look at some of the models, little, if anything, moves this far north. Some have precip and some have temperatures like the European above freezing. So because of the uncertainty, the Weather Service here in Memphis this afternoon, when they updated their forecast, extended the ice storm warning from 6 a.m. tomorrow, from noon tomorrow to 6 a.m. on Thursday. We'll see how that shakes out. By far, we've had a lot of sleet this afternoon and this evening. Right now, we're getting a little bit of light freezing rain, which is not good. But because we've already had close to 1/2 inch of liquid, and most of that fell as sleet, that has really cut down on the threat for extensive power outages, because that would have added another 1/4 inch or so of ice to the trees, because not all of it accretes, especially if it's raining harder. But you can see this. I know this is a cherry tree. I've got some of these at home. I don't know if it's a Yoshino or what it is, but it's going to be beautiful in a couple of months. Yes. Can you believe it? This thing will be out in bloom by probably mid-March here in Memphis. We've got about 1/4 of an inch of ice on the tree. You can see how this part of the tree is down towards the ground. So yes, there's enough weight to bring it down, but nothing has snapped. That's what happens when you get more ice, especially on the bigger trees, and those limbs and trees come down on power lines. But right now, under 500 power outages in Shelby County. Earlier this afternoon, we were up to 2,200. This is the other issue, and this will probably be more of an impact than the power outages when you're talking about the number of homes I just mentioned. But look at this road, and this is basically what you're seeing all across western Tennessee. This is mostly sleet, so you do get some traction, and then under this, the moisture is freezing. I don't think this road was treated, plus there's not a lot of traffic, but it's kind of shiny over here, so that tells me that it's frozen, it's solid. But you've got the slush and the sleet on top, so you're going to get a little bit more traction than you would if this was just a solid sheet of ice. By far, anything elevated where the cold air can surround it, the bridges and overpasses, those are the #1 concern in the morning. But basically all of these roadways are like this. Schools are closed again tomorrow here across western Tennessee and across the river in Arkansas. As far as the flights go, Jeff, last time I checked, 44 flights canceled in and out of Memphis. I think that's 7% of departures, so not a huge impact unless you're on one of those flights, of course. Jeff?
All right, Mike. And by the way, when you were over at the whatever cherry tree that was, as the cars were coming up behind you, they kind of backlit the ice on there, really looked, kind of showed you exactly how much ice was on that tree. So hats off to you and the crew there for of course, staging that. I knew you did that as the car was coming up. You knew that would happen. All right, thanks a lot, Mike. Yeah. Seidel, he is in the Memphis area there in Shelby County. And again, there are closures to your west, closures to your east. Mike, you're kind of in between right now. How are conditions there in Memphis?
We've been showing you all night here, Jeff. It's sleet, mostly sleet that we've had right now. We're still getting some sleet, a little freezing rain mixed in, but it looks like mostly sleet right now again, which is great because that cuts down on the amount of weight on the trees and power lines. We've really benefited from that since mid-afternoon, about a half an inch of liquid, and most of that was sleet. Roadways, too, benefiting. It's not a skating rink, but it's certainly no walk in the park. You come out here and you've got sleet and slush, which is frozen now. So it's a hard surface, but you do have something for your tires to grip onto. So it's going to help out, especially on the hilly areas, which aren't many here in east and western Tennessee. Bridges and overpasses is always an issue because the cold air surrounds them, and the DOT is certainly working on those primarily because that's the main crux of the problem. The other issue is the fact that we don't have as much ice as we thought. We still have power outages here in Shelby County. They've jumped from about 450 up to 1,000 in the past 45 minutes. Statewide, about 6,000. Most of those are northwest of Nashville going out towards Clarksville. So overnight, the precip that we have, you can see on the radar, there's not much left coming in from the south and west from Arkansas. It's going to wind down, and then we're going to be dry. Nothing else expected until late tomorrow night. All the models bringing some more liquid back in here. The question is it going to be 31? Is it going to be 33 or 34? And how much do we get? So that's going to be sorted out. That's why the Weather Service here in Memphis extended the ice storm warning late this afternoon from noon tomorrow to 6 a.m. Thursday to cover all the bases. We'll see how things turn out. Maybe we do sneak up above freezing tomorrow because there's no reason really for the temperature tomorrow night to fall, much like tonight. It's 26, 27. It's not going to fall. And if it gets up to 33 or 34 tomorrow afternoon, early evening, Jeff, it's not going to fall tomorrow night. There's no front coming in to do that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that batch number 2 is it, and batch number 3 here falls and hits as liquid and not as frozen late tomorrow night and early Thursday morning.
All right, so what you're telling me is the temperature has nowhere to go but up, although it may be slowly. All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah,
exactly.
We're going to hold you to that forecast. All right, that's Mike Seidel there in Shelby County.